Hey everyone, it's Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys a brand new 2022 album review. And today we're going to be talking about the new album from, well, one of my most anticipated albums for 2022. And as you can see below the title, today we're going to be talking about the new album from Meshuggah entitled Immutable, which is out now through Atomic Fire Records. Now, I probably don't need to introduce Meshuggah. If you haven't heard of Meshuggah, get out. Uh, they're a progressive death metal band, whatever you want to classify them as, hailing all the way from Sweden, been around since 1987. And Meshuggah are known for their pretty crazy odd signature time signatures, sick polyrhythms and everything. And a lot of people would consider Meshuggah to be the band that pretty much started the whole gent movement, because you hear bands, newer bands like After the Burial and Periphery, using the same style riffs that they do, but nobody pulls it off better than Meshuggah. And this album is their first album in 6 years, following up their 2016 album, The Violent Sleep of Reason, which I thought that was a pretty good album. And it's been 6 years since we had any new Meshuggah music, and when I heard I think it was the first single called The Abysmal, I was like, wow, they are back. And does this album live up or exceed what the Violent Sleep of Reason has? In my honest opinion, I think Immutable does that job. I just think, I don't know, Meshuggah are, in my opinion, the most heaviest band ever, and or just live, because I've seen Meshuggah twice. Um, and I don't know how they do it, even after almost 35 years, they just kick ass. Just like the production is great. Let's just dive right into like the band members' performance. Jens Kidman's vocals, like his vocals have just sounded more powerful now. I don't even know how he does it. It's just great. And the guitar work is just tight. Like it has that signature Meshuggah guitar tone from Frederick Dornendahl and Martin Hagstrom, I believe is his last name. Both Frederick and Martin come up with some really sick riffs. Just it's just so ball crushingly heavy. Just the guitar tone on this album. The bass on this album is pretty audible. I mean, it's not audible, but it's definitely audible. But that's the one thing I've heard from Meshuggah's production. Like it sounds very bassy. See, I think Dick Lofgren really just stepped up. And last but certainly not least, the man Thomas Hockey. One of the best, in my opinion, my favorite metal drummers of all time. It's crazy to see that the shit that he does, like, I don't even know. He makes pretty much every metal drummer want to quit just because of how fucking great he is. So, yeah, I pretty much rambled on for about 3 minutes. So, without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now, starting things off is Broken Cog, which starts off with a really great palm mute riff, just pretty much opens the album before a lead guitar and a snare joins in. And it pretty much finds herself in like them signature Meshuggah odd time polyrhythms. And the piece just continues to build up, followed by a second lead guitar that duels harmonically. And I love how Yen sort of like whispers the lyric. And this mood is just very kind of gives a lot of a somber feel, and I just like the dynamic, less aggressive progression, which Thomas says I feel like the band was aiming for this time. And I feel like Broken Cog has more of an intro character to it, and I think it's a pretty good way to start off this album. Anyway, next up is The Abysmal Eye, which was the first single released from Immutable. And this song starts off with some really great rhythmic double bass pattern, and then it just really very rhythmic. It's also a very simple song for the band. But I feel like Meshuggah wouldn't be them if they had stayed that way from the end. And then I love how the middle it gets kind of more tricky, and it's just another sick song. Next song on the album is called Light the Shortening Fuse. Now, this change is really noticeable with the third song in. It's the first classic Meshuggah song on this album, and it opens with a really sick odd time riff plus lead guitar. And in terms of that tempo, the song is very faster compared to the previous two that we heard so far, and also better, not by the sick main riff. And then the second half, there's some really great lead guitars that go in again. But overall, I feel like the song kind of remains gloomy and then pretty much Broken Cog. Phantoms. Now this has a very groovy riff, and I love the bass tone alternates with the same power chord. And this song just focuses more on the rhythm and gets more rid of the more melodic elements, and it has that classic Meshuggah sound. And I don't know, I just love the radical break in the middle of the song, and then the band switches to a different kind of polyrhythm that introduces the next Meshuggah style element, the string drawn bass riff, and at the end the lead guitar is sliding up and the down is added. And I feel like this song is strong, kind of like the shortening fuse, and I feel like it's another highlight to the album in my opinion. Next song is called Ligature Marks. Now I feel like Meshuggah are stepping on the brakes right here, but only in the terms of the tempo, and not terms of the brutality. And this song is just fucking heavy. It's just slow, but anything but boring. As unfortunately sometimes that case with the sluggish Meshuggah pieces, but I love the deep guitar chord that's a melody for the individual tones, then merge into another palm muted tones at the end. God He Sees in Mirrors. Now, I feel like old school fans of this band should really pay attention to this song. And I feel like Meshuggah just goes all out from the very first second, and I feel like there's like a riff that kind of like sounds like something from Destroy, Erase, Improve. But then again, the band serves a really great tempo, faster can like stuff from Chaos Sphere, or They Move Below. Now this is pretty much the longest track on the album by far. It's 9.5 minutes long, and it has a very starting off with a quiet, long, clean guitar intro, again with two lead parts. In the first third, the song goes up to a subdued, relaxed mood, but remains kind of uncatchy to me. But after 2.5 minutes, the supposed redeeming mid-tempo riff kicks in, but immediately delusionment sets in because the grooves are far less than everything we've heard so far, and it just feels kind of dragging and a bit sluggishy. And since there's no vocals halfway through, it just becomes clear that it's an instrumental track. But unfortunately, this turns out to be a mistake because no other song on this album offers so little instrumental excitement on this one. But in my opinion, I think this is the weakest song on here. Moving on to Kaleidoscope. Now, this song is another mid-tempo rager. It just gradually boredom sits in, but I feel like the elements are repeated in another low-pitch riff, complex rhythms for the sake of complexity. But I feel like Kaleidoscope passes you by all notice, and it doesn't manage to stand out from the other tracks, neither in a positive or a negative way. Black Cathedral is up next. Now, this is something new that we've never heard from Meshuggah in terms of riffs. A very tremolo riff, which stylistically this doesn't fit Meshuggah's sound at all, but I feel like it sounds a lot more black or death metal. And then a second tremolo joins in, no trace of the other instruments. And this song isn't even a full song, but I feel like it's only an interlude. But I feel like this would have been exciting to hear as a real song with these elements. But then this brief interlude ends very abruptly with no drums or other instruments. And then it goes into the next song called I Am That First. And I feel like this song just picks up the pace again, and it just grooves properly, and once again, and it pretty much has that typical Meshuggah trademarks, very compact and excitedly composed. And I feel like this piece can't be quite complete, which can't compete with like other songs like The Shortening Fuse and Phantoms, and it's still remembered as one of the most great compositions. In the last third of the song, there's a break with some really sick chords, which slowly but steadily sort of build up into a very complex groove. Next up is The Faultless. Now, like Kaleidoscope, I feel like this song bobs along unspectacularly. Very classic Meshuggah filler, just solid, no highlight, just nothing really, but that's just me. Next song on the album is called Armies of the Preposterous. Now, I feel like this song will just wake you right up with the furious drumming and then doomy kind of like riffs that lay over this beat. Of course, without the rhythmic not without the rhythmic sophistication. And I really just think the notes and like the grooves on here are just very pounding. And then we get to the final song on the album, which is called Past Tense. Now, this song just begins with a really calm, kind of like bassy, clean guitars, and then the intro sort of like spreads that kind of like dark mood, and that constant expectation that things will really get going right away kind of remains unfilled. And then after 2 minutes, the song just becomes very meandering along, unchanged, and then 3 minutes it becomes clear as there's nothing more to come, and this song just remains a kind of an unexciting instrumental. But now overall, Immutable by Meshuggah. It's a pretty good album, but I honestly think Violent Sleep of Reason is much better. So if I were to give this album a score, I would give this probably a solid 8 out of 10. Yep, that's my review of the new Meshuggah album, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the video, or the album, and I'll see you all in the next video. And as always, keep it metal.